Hey guys, Mike here. So today I'm here to talk to you about 1992's A Few Good Men, starring Tom Cruise as Lieutenant Daniel Caffey. In A Few Good Men, military lawyer Lieutenant Daniel Caffey defends two Marines accused of murder. However, the Marines concede that they were acting under orders. And so we have A Few Good Men. So guys, today's movie was requested by my friend Ryan's girlfriend Lee. Actually, it wasn't so much requested as the fact that she said, if I don't watch this movie, she'll never speak to me again. So at that point I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'll watch the film then. And going into this one, I knew pretty much nothing about it. I mean, I always knew that this film contained the line that Jack Nicholson says, "You can't handle the truth." And that's really all I knew. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that I found out that this movie was actually about military lawyers as opposed to regular lawyers. So there was that as well. So really, all I knew about this film was that Tom Cruise starred in it, Jack Nicholson was in it, and it had that famous line, and it was about military lawyers. Other than that, knew absolutely nothing about it, though I'd heard really good things about this film over the years. So, what did I think of A Few Good Men? Well, first of all, I just love the way that this film builds up characters and character relations. It just does it so superbly. In other films, these kind of clunky, slightly expositional scenes can be somewhat tedious in other films. Whereas in this film, when something needs to be found out about a character, it feels like it's learnt naturally, as opposed to it just feeling like someone reading off a checklist going like, this is your past, this is who you are, this is where you're going. They have actual, real sounding conversations, and it feels natural that you're learning the information this way. Like when you find out about Tom Cruise's character never actually setting foot inside of a courtroom, yet being this amazing lawyer. And this is shown brilliantly towards the start of the film when Tom Cruise is talking to another lawyer about their clients and trying to get them off of a plea bargain. And at first, it seems like the other character has Tom Cruise's character dead to rights, but then Tom Cruise just lays out his entire plan of pretty much rebutting everything that that guy would throw at him. And he's not even really looking at the guy or even paying attention to him when he says it, thus showing how cool and commanding he is. But also later on, when he's actually doing his job, they show that he's kind of sloppy with it, a bit unprepared. And it shows that the character really isn't perfect. It shows that he knows how to be a good lawyer, but it doesn't really show him kind of presenting himself that way. Because when everyone in the film meets him, they think he's this kind of lazy slack-off. And to be fair, with the first impression that he gives a lot of the characters, it's understandable to see why. And at the start of the film, you wonder, why is this guy even a lawyer? He doesn't really show any great passion towards it. But then, as you strip back his character, find out where he's come from, where he wants to go, who he knows, and all these kind of things, you find out that he does really want to be a lawyer. And really, it's all kind of a different mix of reasons. You could take any one as the main catalyst for the reason he wants to be a lawyer, and each one of them would have been valid. But then one of the things that really helps push Tom Cruise's character forward is Demi Moore's character, who has the struggle of really wanting to prove herself as a competent lawyer. Now, really, you could chuck it down to a lot of things why she really hasn't had a chance to really prove herself. One of them being that she's a woman in a male-dominated profession, and the other one being that she really hasn't got enough significant experience to really make anyone put any kind of confidence in her. As well, some of the other characters do believe that she's kind of overreaching a little bit. But nevertheless, a reduced role in the case she really wanted won't stop her from trying to prove herself. And there are so many great things with Tom Cruise's and Demi Moore's characters' relationship. One of the first ones being that they didn't make the characters go completely romantic. Because you know how these stories will go. Guy meets girl, at first they hate each other, they get to know each other, and then eventually they'll end up together. But it does go a bit different from that. The characters meet, they do hate each other, they start to get on a bit more, they start to learn things from one another. It does look like it's starting to go romantic, but it never goes completely full out on it. It maintains a professional atmosphere, whilst at the same time that the characters have a lot of respect for each other, and you could argue they have a lot of feelings towards one another. Maybe if there was a sequel or there was another like 10 or 15 minutes added onto the movie, they probably might have got together. But honestly, I'm just grateful for where they left it. But really, the thing that I loved most about these characters does kind of lean a lot more into them learning from one another. Because another thing you find out about Tom Cruise's character is that his approach to the law is very binary. It's very is or it isn't. He looks at the facts and he doesn't really insert himself into the situation. He looks at the evidence placed in front of him and he makes an assessment purely based on that. Whereas Demi Moore's character, she kind of makes him look at it at a different angle, kind of use his feelings a bit more. She starts to make him put himself into the situation, kind of think outside the box a bit more. And this kind of philosophy that she brings to him does ultimately affect his approach to the case. Because even though the facts are telling him that he cannot win this case, he just ignores all that and still puts himself 100% into this case. But even with this new outlook, he never loses the mentality of, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove in court. So it shows that he doesn't just completely change his personality, he just becomes a better lawyer. And obviously the rest of the supporting cast are amazing in this film, but obviously you can't knock Jack Nicholson's performance in this film. My god, I mean, this guy's probably only in about 3 scenes in the entire movie and probably about has 20 minutes of screen time. But despite this, Jack Nicholson is just incredible in this film. Honestly, he'd already sold me that he deserved an Oscar nomination for this film even before they got to the courtroom, even before he got to his famous line from this film. And he's able to say and show so much of what his character's about with hardly any screen time. It's obvious that Jack Nicholson really earned an Oscar nomination for this film, but I'm honestly shocked how Tom Cruise didn't get an Oscar nomination for this film, because honestly, he gave one of the best performances that I've ever seen him give. I know I find myself constantly saying that about Tom Cruise, but near enough everything I've seen him in, he's always been amazing, and it's just shocked me how this guy hasn't got an Oscar under his belt at this point. But then another great relationship that really carries the story forward is the relationship between the Marines and the Navy, and kind of their prejudices that they actually carry towards one another. Because the Marines see the Navy soldiers as really stuck up and really up their own asses, whereas the Navy soldiers see the Marines as just a bunch of jarheads just following orders. And it's as each side gets to know one another a bit more, they see that there's a lot more going on underneath the surface. Because at the start, when the 2 Marines see Tom Cruise's character, they salute him instinctually. You know, he's an officer, they must salute him. But it doesn't really go beyond that. And then as the story goes on, he starts to lose their respect, so they don't salute him. But then as it gets towards the end, as he's earned their respect again, it's just this moment where he salutes him again, which just makes the whole story feel really worth it. And it makes everything that these characters have gone through, learning about one another, respecting one another, that it makes their whole character arc really feel earned. But as well, another great thing that A Few Good Men does, it makes the story understandable and entertaining as well. Because if handled poorly, a lot of these courtroom dramas, they kind of go over people's heads, or they just end up completely bored of all the technical jargon. But because these are such interesting characters, the subject matter is understandable, and it's presented in an interesting and clear-cut way, it makes the whole thing really enjoyable. Because really, most of the film is just them kind of sitting around and talking about the case, and if handled poorly, that could have come across as very boring. But because at times the story is light-hearted, and it takes itself seriously when it needs to, it manages to find a nice balance to make the whole thing really enjoyable. And again, going back to relationships, again, I love the one between Tom Cruise and Kevin Bacon. The fact that in most of their professional career, the 2 of them are at odds with one another, but still they have a mutual respect for one another. They can still talk to each other outside of work, they can give each other advice, and even when in the courtroom, they treat each other with respect, whilst at the same time trying to bring down the other one's case. Neither one pulls any punches when inside the courtroom, which again shows respect. And obviously as well, get Tom Cruise and Kevin Bacon in a movie together, it's obviously going to be good. But then, towards the end as well, leading up to the line, "You can't handle the truth." Now, Tom Cruise's strategy would not have worked with anyone else, because they had no obligation to answer any of his questions when he was asking them the way that he was. Because again, it comes down to the thing that ultimately changed Tom Cruise's character. It came down to feeling rather than facts. Because throughout the film, Tom Cruise and his team had a feeling that Jack Nicholson's character wasn't telling the whole truth, or he had something to do with the case. But really, they had no hard evidence for it. So everything that Tom Cruise's character does towards the end was completely improper and could have lost him his whole job. But because he had this instinctual feeling, and because he kind of knew what Jack Nicholson's character was like, he knew what to do. Because he knew that Nicholson's character was so full of pride. And it kind of really came from this one line that he said towards the middle of the movie when he says, "I ate my dinner 400 yards from 400 Cubans who are trying to kill me." Because it's not the fact that Jack Nicholson's character hasn't earned everything that his character has, because he probably has. He's been in the military a long time, and he's probably proven himself an effective and respected leader. But it's not that, it's his pride. It's the fact that he wants everyone to know what a great guy he is, and that eventually leads to his downfall. And it's the way that Cruise's character just goads him into speaking that eventually he just breaks. And like I said, it's this fundamental character flaw which ends up being his undoing. Overall, guys, A Few Good Men was absolutely incredible. A masterpiece of cinema. This movie has so many great things going for it, from the cast, the direction, the cinematography, the story. Everything in A Few Good Men is just done brilliantly. And honestly, I just enjoyed every second I was watching this film. But now, as for or not, you guys should go and see it. Honestly, if you haven't already seen A Few Good Men, then I would highly recommend that you should watch it. Because even though I knew the ending, the way the story set it up, it really felt like it could go either way. So basically, do yourselves a favour, watch A Few Good Men. Okay guys, that's my review of A Few Good Men. Do you love it? Do you hate it? What do you think I should watch next? Whatever it is, drop it in the comments below. Until next time, I've been Michael. See ya!